Well, it's official. We're going to be getting a new Star Wars film every year from now on, whether we like it or not. Because it's not like the 2-year wait time between films contributed to everyone's love of the original trilogy. Oh, wait. Actually, it's a lot like that. But big, dumb summer movies are now massive cultural signifiers, on top of being the basket that movie studios put all their eggs in for the entire year. So we nerds are henceforth required to show up and be counted every time until we all drown in the rising toxic seas, or get wiped out by a Category 10 hurricane. Considering where we are, you're much more likely to die in a massive earthquake, or in the tsunami one inspires. Gee, thanks. Needed a pick-me-up. Happy to oblige. Ooh, and there's Mount St. Helens. It's like right over there. Don't forget that. Ooh, that is a thought. Yes. It's clear to me now that, unlike its predecessors, this new trilogy actually is being conceived and executed according to a grand 6-year-plus plan. And the plan is, make Star Wars fans endlessly speculate about what's going to happen in the next film, ensuring that ambient levels of hype remain high enough to guarantee it'll make $1 billion once it drops, no matter what happens. But since Disney's not paying me to carry their water, I'd much rather wait until this new trilogy's all wrapped up, and then review them all in one of these little micro binges I tend to go on. Yes. By then everyone will be sick of hearing about them, and no one will care one whit for what you think. I approve this plan. Thanks, bro. Great to have you on board. Since it takes at least 2 years to make a numbered Star Wars movie, the committee that runs Lucasfilm these days has seen fit to release standalone films in the interim. Little side stories from around the universe that probably won't stray very far from the time frame everyone's familiar with. Sorry, Old Republic fans. The first of these, 2016's Rogue One, a Star Wars story, might as well have been a big red cape Disney waved in front of my face. For one thing, it's directed by Warwickshire's own Gareth Edwards, the director of 2014's Godzilla, aka the American Godzilla movie people didn't reflexively hate. With some exceptions. Bob. We internet movie critics have been watching Edwards rise to power since 2010, when he made his first feature, Monsters. Back then, his was supposed to be a feel-good, pull-yourself-up-by-your-bootstraps story about the possibilities of indie filmmaking in this brave new world of ours. Dude made a whole movie in 3 weeks with a 7-person crew for way under $500,000, and then he cut it all together on his laptop. Just think of what you can accomplish, you lazy pothead slacker. Yeah, just think. With enough pluck and grit, you too could get snatched up by one of the big 5, soon to be 4, movie studios, and tasked with cranking out franchise filler films until you look like Donovan at the end of Last Crusade. Assuming they don't kick your ass to the curb over creative differences halfway through pre-production. Sign me the fuck up for that, sailor. Sounds like living the dream. Only, it's that dream where you're naked and tap dancing across a minefield for the amusement of no-talent assholes who'll go on to dismiss all of your hard work as franchise filler films. At least Rogue One starts off with what passes for a bold defiance of expectations nowadays. We get the usual "a long time ago" card, but not the traditional John Williams theme. Nor do we get an opening crawl, and I very much appreciate its absence. It's almost like this is some kind of artistic presentation or something, and not just a blatant cash grab from the studio that brought you Lion King 1.5, which is a thing that totally exists. Disney wasted most of the 2000s making things like that, and they even invented their own cutesy-poo term for them. The midquel. It's like a sequel, except it takes place between 2 already extant movies. Meaning that, if we were putting numbers on this, this would technically be Star Wars Episode 3.5. Though, really, all the action takes place a lot closer to the opening of 4 than the ending of 3. So, Star Wars Episode 3.9975, Rogue One, is the Star Wars story of Jyn, with a Y, because we're in a galaxy far, far away, Erso, a common criminal, sprung from jail by the Rebel Alliance because her dad is the chief engineer of the Death Star. And hey, Mads! Nice to see you again so soon. And playing a character who doesn't have something fucked up about their eyes, and whose name isn't Hannibal. Good on you, buddy. The Erso family tried their hand at moisture farming on some volcanic rock somewhere, but then the Empire came a-calling, shot Jyn's mom, and press-ganged her former super scientist dad into building the Emperor a doomsday weapon. Now, Erso the Elders managed to smuggle a message out of captivity via some poor cargo pilot. Unfortunately, said pilots wound up in the not-so-tender hands of Clone Wars cartoon show one-off character Saw Gerrera. All grown up by this point into Forrest Whitaker. Damn. Never saw that coming. Some people have all the luck. Saw basically raised Jyn after her dad got kidnapped and her mom got shot, but he and the rest of the rebels are not on the best of terms. Not to put too fine a point on it, but this is the era people actually wanted to see when we all lined up for the prequels. What old Ben Kenobi called the Dark Times. The heart of the Imperial Age. And, consequently, the Rebellion's infancy. After all, whom among us really wanted to visit Coruscant? Apart from those of us who were dumb enough to get into the books and the comics back in the 90s. No, we wanted to go back to the pyramids of Yavin 4 and see them stuffed with X-Wing fighters and futurist analog technology that looks retro-futurist by now. With that one poor bastard up in the crow's nest, tracking ships with his binocs as they take off, and the music swells. We wanted all the familiar brand signifiers. Well, they're all here, and they all float. Saw even gets to drop an "it's a trap" on us, and Jen's eventually going to run into that odd couple Luke and Obi-Wan met in the Mos Eisley Cantina. Met. Will meet. All this jumping around the timeline plays hell with your verb tenses. And, of course, we wanted to see Darth Vader, in his prime, intimidating the hell out of subordinates, slaughtering corridors full of dudes without even really trying, and played once again, at least in voice, by James Earl Jones. It's especially nice to hear him back behind the mask after years of bad sound-alikes in every Star Wars video game. But, predictably, his appearance dominated fan discourse in the weeks after this premiered to the exclusion of pretty much everything else. I may have mentioned this before, but fan service is a vile narcotic, folks. An unspeakable scourge. The real public enemy, #1, and I say this as a lifelong addict whose fix must be of the highest quality. Speaking of which, holy space Jesus! Has the day finally arrived when Mon Mothma, canonical leader of the Alliance to Restore the Republic, actually gets more than 3 lines in a Star Wars movie? Oh my god, saints be praised it has. She was supposed to have a bit part in Episode 3, but of course that got cut to make the climactic battle longer, because we all needed that. Here, she uses all of her lines to tell us pretty much everything I just told you, and set up the dichotomy between her side of the rebellion and the extremist Saw Gerrera, giving Jyn, our main character and audience stand-in, something to pivot between. And you may ask yourself, just how extremist can someone really be against a galaxy-spanning, tyrannical, fascist omni-state ruled by an evil wizard and his cyborg buddy? Letting your pet psychic squid fondle a defector's brain is only extremist if A, you don't know what hentai is, and B, you don't know how fond of infiltration and subversion these fascist omni-states can really be, even the ones that aren't ruled over by Sith lords. Now, this dichotomy between an extremist and a bunch of moderate rebels is very stupid, very pointless, and very much manufactured specifically to create drama in this film. But it is also, dare I say it, dare to be stupid. Downright realist. And if you tilt your head and squint a bit, it can even pass for realistic. Every rebellion against every evil empire in this or any other galaxy has faced exactly this kind of paranoia-driven schism. Especially those rebellions with powerful yuppie elements at their hearts. Current or former government officials, say. Like senators. Or princesses raised by senators. They may hate the tyrannical fascist omni-state they're fighting, sure. But they're gonna hate the people who are fighting it wrong even more. Shrinks like to call it the narcissism of small differences. So, along with pilot Cassian Andor and reprogrammed tactical droid K2SO, it's off to see the ghost dog and pick up a few stragglers along the way. Here at last, we see the real reason for this film's existence, over and above making Disney another $1 billion. When we finally hear Urso the Elder's message, we hear that he's been playing the long game all this time. He's built an Achilles heel into the Emperor's new planet killer, and now all Jin has to do is convince the rebels, no, really you guys, my dad wasn't just a collaborating piece of shit. We can totally take this motherfucker down if we just steal its blueprints from the heavily guarded secret facility where they're being kept, a process somewhat complicated by A, the Death Star's destruction of Saw's base. Bye, Forrest Whitaker. Nice to see ya for a second. B, the rebels' retaliatory strike against the Imperial Research Facility where they're holding Jin's dad. And C, the rebellion's own inherent fatalism in the face of death from above. So all you pedants out there who spent decades complaining about how unbelievable it was that a single farm boy could take out a Death Star with just one well-placed torpedo, rejoice and be exceeding glad. You've won. Aren't you happy? Well, you should be. Chief Creative Officer of ILM John Knoll is one of you. This was his pitch, and he gets story credit, on top of being an executive producer. Thankfully, other screenwriters came along to turn Knoll's fan pedantry into something that looks like a story. And, in a pleasant surprise, it's a story about how the early rebellion was so shit-scared that one small band of criminals, losers, drifters, and refugees managed to drag it, kicking and screaming, into actually saving its own existence. There was some questioning of this among the faithful. How could the rebellion be this factious, and backbiting, and foot-dragging, and just generally awful? They're supposed to be the good guys, right? To which I would reply, y'all do remember how a couple of teenagers and a couple of smugglers are gonna wind up taking this whole shit show over in just a few short years, right? There have been other instances of Star Wars fans' selective amnesia since, but this one's still pretty funny to me. The presence of Peter Cushing, or a creepy digital simulacrum of Peter Cushing, played by Guy Henry with a bunch of light bulbs on his face, was the other big point of fan contention. Far as I'm concerned, not Peter Cushing's voice is way more distracting than his face. If we're talking about faces, Arnold from Terminator No Salvation and Genesis still win my personal Uncanny Valley award. Hardly matters, though. Creepy digital Peter Cushing's barely a cameo in this. Our real villain is Ben Mendelsohn, and he does evil bureaucrat very well. Hopefully he won't get typecast, since he's apparently been toiling down under since the year I was born. And being in a Star Wars movie should open up at least a few doors for you in modern Hollywood. Oh wait, never mind. There he is playing an evil bureaucrat in a Spielberg movie. Shit, that was fast. Naturally, Rogue One resolves itself with a gigantic climactic battle. And this is also what people come to Star Wars for. Sci-fi combined arms operations. Land, sea, and air. As a director, Gareth Edwards has always been a great landscape painter. To the point where, 20 years ago, he could have given Thomas Kincaid a run for his money. And that's on full display here, now that he has an entire galaxy of landscapes to linger over. But compared to the rest of his oeuvre, this movie might as well be wearing a Flash costume, it moves so fast. Either Edwards is getting better, or Disney paired him with a better editor than the WB. But either way, good job all around. On the technical side. Part of me can't help but wondering what Josh Trank would have made of all this, but we all know what happened to him. And, in a first for Gareth Edwards films, just as the boring one-note characters start to wear thin on you, they all die. Mostly in decorous explosions, but that's the PG-13 for you. And it is something to see a multi-million-dollar American sci-fi action movie where the entire cast dies. Meaning this is the most self-contained Star Wars film since the first one. And that's about the best box quote I can offer. Apart from, this is the guy at my local gas station's new favorite Star Wars movie. And it managed to justify its own existence. Barely. Mostly thanks to Donnie Yen. Hey Donnie, don't ever change. My runner-up for favorite character is Kay, because the droids in these movies have always been more human than the humans. That's another good thing about these ensemble pieces, whether they're explicitly labeled as superhero team-up movies or not. If watching the main characters trudge through the foregone conclusions of their arcs gets boring, you can at least stay awake by latching on to one of the cool supporting characters. Or two. And take heart in the fact that they're probably going to get their own damn tie-in comic book at some point here. No chance that'll get wiped out of continuity in 20 years. Oh no, we promise. Too bad the accelerated hype schedule means that everyone on the internet exhausts everything they have to say about a film before it even comes out. Oh well, better to clear the decks for the next one. It's like purposefully induced amnesia at this point. I mean, does anyone even remember Rogue One anymore? Does anybody care? Part of why I'm doing this is to find out if anybody cares. Because if it really is down to just me, then that's kind of a problem, because I barely cared about Star Wars in the first place. Oh, that's perfect. That'll get them. End it there. Unless you'd like to talk about Star Trek. Fuck no. Unless you're going to tell me that Beyond was somehow the good one that I unfairly punished for the sins of Into Darkness. Ah, fuck. Thanks for watching, everyone. Special thanks to our patrons, Mr. Hoodie Dean, Detective Steve, and the After Movie Diner. If you liked this video, hit the like button. If you really liked this video, hit the subscribe button for more. And if you really, really, really liked this video, then support me on Patreon to make the more videos you get of a higher quality. Next time, I haven't decided yet. Probably Ragnarok, though.